Good morning, folks. This is Jeff from MJ Adventuring, and this morning we're going to be talking about minimum requirements, basic setups, really what do you need to get started taking your kids fishing. Now you may be wondering to yourself, why am I down here in the dungeon that is my basement? Well, because behind me we have my workbench, and pretty much this is where all of our fishing trips get started. This is where we come to get our gear together and organized, and this is where we dump our gear off at the end of the day, which is why this table is such a mess right now. So if you'll give me a minute, we'll get this cleaned up and we'll get talking about what do you need to do to get your kids on some fish. Alright, well that is a little bit better. Obviously that took more than a few minutes. If you want to see the transformation of this space, check out my wife's channel, This Pilgrim Life, and she's got a special going up about all that took place down here as we transformed this from sort of a junk pit to a nice work area. So the first thing we're going to look at is what are the basic things that you need when you go, say, to Walmart or perhaps Academy, another sporting goods store. What are the essential items that you need to look for, you need to make sure that you have when you get out to take your kids fishing? Because you know you're not ready to buy 5, 6, 7 rods. You don't want 10, 15 different types of tackles or lures or any of those sorts of things. You're just ready for an introduction to fishing, to get your kids out on the water having some fun and hopefully catching some fish. What are the basics that you need? Let's take a look at that now. All right, so let's talk about the basic things that you need to make sure that you have in your shopping cart before you leave the store when you're getting ready to take your kids fishing for the first time. We're going to work our way from the end of the rig, where your hook is, all the way back to the rod. We'll discuss each thing that you need to make sure that you have. The first thing is obviously a hook of some sort. It's hard to go fishing if you don't have any hooks. Now you'll notice hooks come in all shapes and sizes and all kinds of packaging, from very inexpensive to very expensive. For our purposes tonight, we are just talking about basic fishing, pan fishing, fishing for things like bluegill or redbreast, shellcracker, the basic fish that you're going to find easily accessible where you live at this time of year. So you'll notice hooks come in smaller packs of 10 or so, larger packs of 25 or 50, and then in packages like this where they are pre-snelled. That just means that they are already attached to a leader with a knot. Now the first thing I'm going to say is if you have a pretty good inclination that you're going to be fishing more than just a time or two, go ahead and get a larger package like one of these. It's going to cost you less per hook, and in the long run, you're going to use them. Also, personally, I would avoid these pre-snelled hooks because they seem to just get tangled on everything, even in the package, and you try to pull them out. I feel personally it's better to just learn to tie a couple of basic knots and tie your hook directed to your main line. So the first thing that you need is a hook. A size 6 or perhaps a size 4. These are both great options for panfish. Make sure it says light wire on it. You don't want to get something that's too heavy. As you can see, these hooks are relatively small. They don't have to be very large because panfish don't have very large mouths. So a small hook will work just fine. Now the next thing you're going to need is some type of weight to get your worm down to the fish. A split shot container like this that comes with multiple sizes of split shot is great. The reason they're called split shot is because you actually have a split there in the BB where you insert the line and you can crimp it shut. I recommend you do that with pliers and not your teeth, although it is lead, so it probably wouldn't hurt your teeth, but just be careful if you want to go that route. So you've got some hooks, you've got some weight. The next thing you're going to need is a bobber of some sort to know when the fish bites your hook. You see they come in different shapes, different sizes. These here are my personal favorite. A cigar float type with a weight. that clips directed to your line. Not too big. You can still cast it a good distance, but the fish don't feel as much resistance when they go to bite the hook. The only ones I would really recommend staying away from are larger ones like this, because they're actually for a totally different purpose and are just too large for what we're talking about today. So pick a bobber that appeals to you. Make sure it's not too big, and I prefer ones that have some type of weight on them that allows you to cast a little bit further. All right, so we've got hooks, we've got weight, we've got bobbers. Now we need bait. Red worms are my personal favorite. They're a hardy worm. Don't mind that brown stuff. That's just worm food. Yes, I do feed my worms. And as you can see, they are they're a decent size, but they're not too big. And these have been living here in my basement for several weeks now, and they're still pretty lively. Red worms are great for that reason. They just live for a very long time. They don't need a lot of attention. They're small enough that you can cut up one worm into 2 or 3 pieces and catch a good number of fish on one. So those are my personal favorite, red worms. Another option that you'll see a lot of in Walmart or other places are night crawlers. Now, night crawlers are great bait, but they're a little bit more finicky. As you can see on the package, they actually say that they must be refrigerated between 38 and 50 degrees. That means on a hot summer day, these are going to die a lot quicker on you. And again, don't mind that brown stuff. It's just worm food. Again, these have been in my fridge for a week or two now, and they seem to be doing okay. But these are much larger worms. And some of them are just gargantuan. I mean, look at that guy. He is enormous. These are great for if you're targeting bass. You could put one of these on the hook hole, or if you're targeting catfish, you could put several on a hook. And now these do make great bait, but I don't personally prefer them for bluegill, for pan fishing, because they are so big. They just tend to, you end up wasting them. You can't use as many. So personally, I say stick with the red worms, especially if you can find some that aren't refrigerated. They will last a lot longer. And the only other thing that you need to really get started is just a couple of tools. These here are all attached to a lanyard that hang around my neck and just make things easier to get to, more accessible. I use these scissors a lot for cutting bait, cutting worms in half. You don't have to have scissors. These nippers are great for clipping line after you're done tying knots. I would recommend you at least have these. And then most importantly are a good pair of pliers, small enough that you can fit the tip into the fish's mouth to get the hook out. My kids know that we have a rule that if we don't have pliers, we don't go fishing, because if you can't get the hook out of a fish, there's a chance that that fish could die, and we're just not interested in killing fish for no reason. So we always make sure we've got a good pair of pliers with us in order to get the hook out of the fish. Now that's something, again, that you'll learn with experience and you'll get better at in time. Just make sure you have them with you. So we've got hooks, we've got weight, we've got bobbers, we've got worms or some other type of bait, and we've got a couple of basic tools on a lanyard. That's really all you need as far as tackle goes. And I'll make sure to put a link in the description for all of these so you can go back and check those and make sure that you've got something that's going to work for you. All right, now let's talk about what kind of rod do you need to get your kids into fishing.
What are those, Marie? Can you say bye? Bye, ducks.
All right, so we've talked about the basic tackle that you're going to need: hooks, weights, bobbers, bait, things like that. Now let's talk about what type of rod do you need, because that's one of the next most often questions that we get from folks that are trying to get their kids into fishing. What is the best rod for my son or daughter? Now there's, again, a lot of different types and sizes and styles, so we'll just talk about them from maybe the simplest to a little bit more complicated. The simplest form of fishing is just a cane pole or a modern equivalent, a graphite or fiberglass brim buster like this one here. Now this is, obviously there's no reel attached to this whatsoever. This is a telescoping rod. You just pull the cap off and the sections extend out. Now this could, maybe you could find them from 10 to 12 to 14 or 16 feet long. And all these do is attach your monofilament, your fishing line, to the end of the rod, and then there's again a bobber, a little piece of weight, and a hook. It doesn't get much simpler than that. Those are a great option, very hard to mess up. Another good option for younger kids is a Zebco Dock Demon, like this one here. They make these in a couple of different styles. I prefer the one with the push button reel because for younger kids it's just a lot easier for them to manage. All they have to remember is push the button and then let go. That's a lot simpler than a spinning reel. Again, nothing fancy, just a bobber and a hook with a piece of worm still dried out and attached to it. Now this is a good size for younger kids because it's small, it's very compact, it's easy for them to manage. One downside to this, however, is that because they are so short, sometimes setting the hook can be a little bit harder. And if the fish aren't hooking themselves, which they often do, it might be harder for a young child to set the hook on a rod this short. So another option you have is a step up from that. Something like this. This is just a Zebco 202 combo. We got this, gosh, a number of years ago from Walmart, I believe, for maybe $15 or so. It comes with a rod, the reel, and already spooled with line. Again, nothing fancy here. You've got a bobber, some weight, and a hook. And obviously this one is a good bit longer than that Dock Demon. It's going to allow your child to cast further and make setting the hook a little bit easier. And now a step up from that. Say you recognize your kids are getting into this, and you want to get them something maybe just a little bit better. Something like this is not a combo that you would be able to buy at a store, but one that you'd have to put together yourself. This is just a store brand rod that we purchased. I think it was about $25 or so, and a Zebco 33 reel. This is going to be a step up in quality from the Zebco 202. It's going to have a metal housing. It's just going to be all around better made. But the reel is more expensive. Again, I think this reel might run you about $25, $30. But same basic principle. A bobber, piece of weight, and a hook. It doesn't have to be complicated. The only thing I would definitely recommend staying away from are character rods, like Spider-Man, Barbie, things like that. In my opinion, those rods are designed not so much to catch fish, but to catch the attention of your children while they're in the store. Mommy, Daddy, can I have this? Can I have this type thing? If that's what they're looking at, try to steer them towards something like this, a Zebco Dock Demon. It's going to do a lot better. And I definitely recommend you go with the Dock Demon. There's other brands out there. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but I think this one is like $12, and there's one that's maybe $8 or $9. And you'll think to yourself, oh gosh, I could save $4 or $5. It's the same thing. Trust me, don't do it. Those other ones, the reel, it comes apart. Anytime you have to unscrew this top piece, all the innards just sort of explode all over the dock. And I can promise you, it is worth $3 extra for the frustration that this one will save you. Because they're going to tangle up. You're going to have to be able to take it apart, get their line freed, and get them back again. So those are my basic suggestions. Zebco Dock Demon, or perhaps a Zebco 202 combo, or maybe look at a Zebco 33 and a rod of your choice. All right, folks, well, that's about it. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope that answers some of your questions about the basic things that you need to have at hand to put your children, hopefully, on some fish. If you've got any questions about this, check the description below, as I'll try to link all of these things that we've talked about, so you can go back and look those up and perhaps purchase them if you'd like. And if you have any further questions, feel free to contact us. We're over on Facebook at MJ Adventuring, and as well as Instagram, MJ Adventuring. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them for you. Well, good luck out there on the water, and we hope to see you there.